welcome to Gunners Rust Podcast, where we are positively Patreon, and that we are. And today, at the end of the week, with an early kickoff on Saturday against Bournemouth, getting this up nice and early, so you've got the whole of Friday to listen, all through the night, obviously, here on Thursday and into Saturday. But we have Arsenal v Bournemouth at the Emirates, 12:30 kickoff. Notoriously not a good time for us to kick off in the Premier League. I think our record generally is quite poor across the board when it comes to 12:30 kickoffs, and I always go back to this. But Robert Pires in his book, I think he tore his ACL there, and he spoke about how all the players hated the 12:30 kickoffs because they felt like they weren't fully prepared. And then I think years later, I remember this not a similar thing, but an injury. Debussy got injured at 12:30, and I remember he wrote about that later on. So different generations. We're talking 2005 or 4, and then later at 2000. When would Debussy been? 2012. I'd say 2012. And then, but just I don't know if we just kind of make a thing out of it or not, but it's kind of become a thing across all teams. I think Klopp made a big thing of it. He hated playing at 12:30. I think when you play midweek, we play Tuesday, so it is midweek, but it's not like it's a shorter week than Bournemouth, for example, who haven't played in, I believe, 23 days. But generally, it's not too bad when it's the Tuesday. We're talking more Wednesday when you play Wednesday evening. And if we had played Wednesday evening, I think this game would have been 8 o'clock Saturday night. So it's just ironic that a day earlier and you can play 6 hours prior. And if you play a whole 24 hours later, you can play 8 hours later. Which I don't know. I don't think I've ever understood it. And obviously, if you play in Europa League on the Thursday, you play on the Sunday. So I don't know. But Arsenal, I can tell you, Arsenal's record. I think that might be more just that's just Premier League, which is really interesting actually. Arsenal's record in the Premier League is 714 wins, 316 draws, and 267 losses. Which I'll take that. I would take that any day of the week as a fan of a team. But I've got Mikel Arteta's record at 12:30 kickoffs. He's played 12, he's won 6, drawn 2, lost 4. We've scored 17 goals in those 12 games, and we've conceded 13. The win rate is literally 50%. I spoke about it on the main feed that Bournemouth are actually, I think they have a record of, I want to say it's 113 years that they have never lost playing in the top division coming off of an international break. And again, it doesn't feel like it's coming off an international break because the international break finished 2 weeks ago. They just haven't played. But that's a mad record. And they're also the most informed team in the Premier League currently, Bournemouth. But when you do look at their results and things, it's not as impressive as when I say they've gone unbeaten. Because there is a decent amount of draws. I'll just tell you their last 5 games in a row. And obviously I've got the injuries and things like that in front of me as well. But they've just come off of 5 draws in a row in all comps. They haven't won in 5. So as much as it sounds great that I think they're unbeaten in, I think it's 14, I want to say. I think they might be 14 games unbeaten in the league, which is the longest run of any team this season. But their last 5, all in the league, it looks like, yes, was a 2-2 draw at home to Man United, a 0-0 away at Burnley, a 0-0 at home to Brentford, a 1-1 at home to Sunderland, and a 0-0 away at West Ham. So as much as that undefeated streak and the not losing in 113 years post-international sounds impressive, I think when you look deeper at the numbers, it's not quite the same. They have also not played since March 20th. So that is in fact 11 plus 9. It's not quite there yet. 11, 22 days. It'll be 22 days between their games, which is such a mad thought considering we would have been 3 days. And since they last played, we would have played twice. Yeah, twice. No, three times. We would have played Sporting away, Southampton away, and the Carabao Cup final since they last played against Man United. Because that was on a Friday night, and I think that was the last time Man United played. And so both of these teams are kind of, I think the longest, Man United and Bournemouth, I think, are the two teams that haven't played for the longest period. And we've not really seen this kind of giant gap ever, really. Usually it's a mixture of kind of maybe luck with teams not going out of cups earlier, the Carabao Cup positioning, them having a Friday night fixture, ironically, before all this. So a lot of things have gone into that. But, 23 days without a game, that's either a huge benefit with resting the players. Obviously, some went to internationals, or it's a massive detriment because they have just not in any kind of flow. And I think before the Sporting game, we'd say that even though we had played, we weren't in any kind of flow, because when you look at our last fixtures, it's a win-win, loss-loss win. Obviously, the two wins were home to Everton 2-0, home to Leverkusen 2-0. Then we lost 2-0 to City in the Carabao Cup final, 2-1 away to Southampton, and then we won away at Sporting 1-0. So I would say we're a bit more formidable, even without the unbeaten run like Bournemouth are on. Our last two home games, and the last time we played at home was 26 days ago by the time we play. So nearly a month without a home game, and which literally did 2-2-0s in a row. We've got a little bit of interest happening today, because I'm recording this late Thursday. Some news. So people that were training and people that weren't training. Obviously, Moreno's out. We'll stick with that. Hincapi, Calafiori, Odegaard, Saka, Moreno were not seen training today. Which, and Timber. So, our right back, our two left backs, our best player in our right winger in Saka, our captain and number 10, and obviously Moreno, we know that that's a long-term thing. But it looks like the Norway coach actually gave us an update on Saka today, which was very strange, because Arteta was very coy, as he always is, and he sat down in that Sporting game, didn't he? And he came off late on, Odegaard. And it looks like it is an actual knock, and it's going to be a little bit of a setback for him. Which is just kind of just compounds some of the bizarre nature of some of our players this season. For example, Kai Havertz, I think this weekend, if he plays, will be his 8th appearance this season. We're in game 54, I believe, or 55 as of Saturday. Not many games. Odegaard, pretty much the same amount of appearances. They've just been so inconsistent with the injuries. Obviously, Havertz gets the injury day one, and it really has some complications with it. Odegaard just hasn't been able to get fit, and this almost goes back the year before. And similar to Havertz, Havertz got injured in the January of 2025. We never truly saw him again, really, until right at the end of 2025, where he dipped into the team for a second before having complications with the knee. So I think in 2025, I think someone said the other day that he made 5 appearances in the whole year. And then since he's been back, then he's made, I believe it is somewhere close to 8. I think that is the number that I read. So just minimal amount of appearances. And he's the same. Odegaard's the same. I think even people like Calafiori has been similar. Timber has, since he had the ACL injury, he's actually been very good. But he's now having a lot of complications and struggles and staying fit. And Cappy's also struggling to stay fit later on in the season. We're seeing a lot of tiredness in that out of Saka and Rice and Zubimendi. It just seems like one in, one out. Odegaard goes down. Eze looks like he's back early. I can't imagine we'll see Eze start at the weekend. So you kind of... I really don't know what he does with the fullbacks, unless, there was a training today. I guess they'll do some kind of test tomorrow, so a couple of these players could be fit. They just weren't seen in training today, along with a big screen that people were very interested by, but God knows what was on it. But maybe we'll get a fullback available, maybe like a Calafiori. But if we do, I would say we're going to see Raya. I think we'll see Mosquera right back, Saliba, Gabriel, and Calafiori. I think we'll have Zubimendi, Rice, and Havertz. I think Gyökeres will be up front. And I think we'll see Do you know what? I could actually see him starting Dowman with Martinelli on the left. I don't know why. I just think, he was. I think he embarrassed a lot of professionals, a lot of full adult professionals on a lot of money in that Southampton game. And Arteta, sometimes we think maybe we see these things and managers don't, and we just trust that they're seeing things that we're not. But he trusted him later on in that Southampton game. He pulled his captain off and he put him in a more responsible position. And then days later flew him to Lisbon and then gave him 15, 20 proper minutes in the Champions League. Madueke wasn't very good in that 70-minute cameo. He wasn't very good in the cameo at Southampton. He wasn't good in the cameo in the Carabao Cup final. At some point, he might have to look there and go, well, from the Everton game to now, when we're looking at the last 5 performances, Saka's not available. Who's better, Madueke or Dowman in that position right now? And I think we could all agree it's Dowman, and that's not just us being biased because he's new, he's Hale End, and all these things. He just is, and I think he's so talented that we're not kind of we're asterisking it with he's young. Maybe it's like a flash in the pan type thing, but I think there's some real talent there that I think at some point, like Yamal at Barcelona, you just got to accept. Yeah, he has to play. And I think we're there, and I think the Bournemouth game might be the one. And it's also, I think it does something to the crowd sometimes. I think that seeing him on that team sheet, when you haven't got Saka, and you might not have Eze, and you might not have Odegaard, and maybe you're missing a right back and a left back. I think you have to do something on that team sheet just to kind of lift that crowd, because 12:30 on a Saturday, they see Dowman. All of a sudden, there's an excitement in the air, and it might be, a facade to an extent, but it might do something just to take the edge off, round the corners a little bit on what could be a bit of a spiky and a sharp atmosphere, because we know how important this weekend is. I think this weekend could be very telling for many reasons. Like if we lose or we draw and City win and they win at Chelsea, I think we all kind of go into a panic. I think we all feel, oh, they're going to get us. I think if we can win and they draw or lose, I think we kind of feel like maybe this is it. This is the start. I think if we both win, I think we also know we're just in for a fight. We're in for the long haul. We're going to have to go the distance. They're not going to lose easily because, dare I say, other than us at their ground, Chelsea away is their hardest fixture, along with probably Everton and maybe home to Villa. Whereas with us, I would say, based on performance, Bournemouth is one of our harder fixtures left. Newcastle at home is a hard fixture. City away, obviously. But outside of that, there's some, without kind of being over dramatic, maybe, Fulham at home, Burnley at home, West Ham away, Palace away, all losable. Everything's losable. But I don't think they're the danger games. And our next 3 Premier League games are Bournemouth at home, City away, Newcastle at home. And I really believe of the 7 left, they are the 3 hardest. So the next few weeks are going to be very telling, but I think this one might be just kind of give us an inkling of the way in which this kind of story is going to unfold. And the fact we're on so early, City are on so late on Sunday, lets them marinate in whatever we've got, whether we've given them a head start with getting a draw, or whether we've won and pile that pressure on. Then they go to Chelsea and they maybe play a little bit, maybe uncharacteristically, because they're trying to go win a game that they would usually have just sat in there and waited and kept the ball, moved it around and just thought, it's going to come. Whereas all of a sudden they have to force it. But who knows, and I just think like picking Dowman might be something that just softens that crowd enough. And when he gets that ball, the excitement, it gets the crowd more invested in that than they are thinking about the season as a whole. Whereas I think if that's Madueke and he runs the ball out of play, and on the other side it's Martinelli, who had an unbelievable cameo coming off the bench, and probably going to be rewarded with a start, but generally quite frustrating. Gyökeres, who I'm a big fan of, we don't get the ball to him a lot, and all of a sudden you think, do you know what, in midfield, as much as Odegaard runs around a lot and touches the ball a lot, he does create chances, and so does Eze. And if it's not them, it's Havertz. He's a different type of midfielder. So all of a sudden you start thinking, lack of creativity, Saka's not there, Trossard, maybe it's Martinelli and Madueke. There's a frustration on the wings. The forwards not getting the ball. We're now frustrated. Oh my God, we're going to draw. City going to win. you can feel that stress level building. And I think stuff like having Dowman or maybe someone surprisingly available like an Eza or maybe Timber, even a fullback like Calafiori, just maybe something like that. Collectively, all of that will kind of lift everyone, because if we see that team news and it's Ben White and Lewis Skelly as the fullbacks to, Saliba and Gabriel, I think there's going to be, as good as those players actually are, I think there'll be a natural kind of, oh God. And then Zubimendi, Rice, absolutely fine. And then Havertz, everyone's going to start thinking, where's the creativity coming from? And you see Madueke and Martinelli, I really think there could be an energy shift in that stadium. We do not need that early on. We know that's for Bournemouth to create and for us to go into a panic and into a shell or whatever they're going to do. We don't need to do it to ourselves. So I just think maybe picking him could be a huge factor in the way in which this game goes. And that's not putting the pressure on a 16-year-old to go win the game for us. It just feels like something maybe that could just kind of, I don't know, not dig our own hole, if that makes sense. As for Bournemouth, Kluivert's still out, who's been out a long time now. Soler, the defender, Lewis Cook is out in midfield, and Tyler Adams is also out. So they've got a few injuries themselves. It'll be interesting to see. They're 13th in the league currently. Goal difference is -2, believe it or not, and their points are 42. They're safe. They're not going to hit Europe this year. They're not having their most standout season. They did lose their back five, essentially. We took literally their goalie. But they lost their back five. We didn't think they were going to do very good. They ended up actually being a lot better than we expected. But there was a lot of losses, and all of a sudden then this unbeaten run has really kind of secured them, kind of not being in a scrap. But it's not being, like I said, it's not that flattering when you actually look deeply at the results. It's a lot of draws and not a lot of goals, and they are struggling with clean sheets as well. So it's not like maybe defensively they're shutting a shot, but they're starting to score some goals. Ironically, London Standard have put up their starting 11, which I can't imagine is going to be right, because this was seeing the who was in training today on the Thursday. They got Raya, Mosquera, Saliba, Gabriel, Calafiori, which is what I did want. They got Rice, Zubimendi, and Odegaard. Odegaard will not be there. Madueke, Martinelli, and Havertz. Havertz played a short amount of time. There is a chance that if Eza's fit, Eza maybe sits in behind Havertz and they let Gyökeres come on late. But I really think Dowman, and also I think maybe if Dowman plays, he does get those balls in quick. That Havertz kind of shadowing the forward like Gyökeres could be something to maybe look at, as something that could go very good. I just saw a little stat somewhere here as well. Arsenal v Bournemouth is scheduled for 12:30. Yep, but that's not new information there. Bournemouth have won 2 of their last 3 league games against Arsenal. They've won 1, drawn 2, lost 11 of the previous 14. But of the last 3, they've won 2 of them. If you remember last year, it was that horrible game at the Vitality where Saliba got booked for being last man because he wasn't fully last man away from goal, and then I think Howard Webb was in the crowd and changed it. One of those weird corruption type moments, and that led to a 2-0. And then this season, I don't remember that fixture this season. Oh, we won 3-2. So we're in for something. I do think, as positive as we are here on Gunners R Us, there is some kind of shift happening in that team that, when you think of our last Premier League game as against Everton, we were very good that day. We also had a full complement. People like Eza, Saka, all these guys were on. It took until the 86 minutes to break them down. And we had given away a couple big chances. And I think Everton, as good as they have been this season, Bournemouth are the type of team you cannot, people like Krupi available, Evan Nilsson, you can't be giving them time. And I know they've lost Semenyo, so they've not just lost their back five at the start of the season. Mid-season, they've lost one of the generational best players they've had in a very long time, if ever. So they're not, the threat they were, and they should be beatable for us sitting at the top of the league. But we almost need to see a couple league games, because we got into this weird spell of kind of just trying to get through that league game to get to the Leverkusen game, and then you have to get to a final and then an international break. Then you come back straight into quarterfinals. Everyone's injured. Also, we're not fully committed to the FA Cup, and then we have to play 3 days later away from home. So, and then that game isn't very fluid because we're away from home in the Champions League trying to get a result. So we're not really seeing us in like a flow with the same players. So it's very hard to dictate whether it's going to be, one of these 70 minutes 0-0. Everyone's starting to really go, oh God, we're not good enough, and panic. Or you see that kind of Arsenal in that fluid attack, and we're 2-0 up at half, and we start to see out the game, and you feel really comfortable. And we haven't had many of them this season, but it is definitely in them to be able to do that. So I would love to see that. Their head-to-head record, the official, by the way, is Arsenal 3 wins, no draws, and 2 Bournemouth wins, which, if you're thinking of optics, you'd think that's a Bournemouth win to make it 3-3, or a draw, because it hasn't happened in the last 5 games. One of them was including a club friendly we won on penalties, by the way. We won 3-0 at home against 2 years ago, and then in the Premier League last year we lost 2-1 at home to Bournemouth. So we've had some bad memories with Bournemouth recently. But there's been some weird little kind of breaking news as well today, I think, which has been you be the judge whether it's a good time or a bad time to start kind of leaking stuff. We've got, I think it's the potential Arteta renewal. And some people are saying, this is bad time because you kind of don't want him to get a renewal unless we win something. And I'm someone who's very much keep the manager, don't kind of get caught up in this whole he's not good enough, and then you go find someone else who definitely isn't good enough, and then we're in like a carousel of managers. I'm not, someone who wants that, but at some point I do kind of agree that if he can't get this over the line now, that maybe they need like a new lick of paint or a new voice in the changing room or something like that. So giving him an extension at this point seems a bit counterproductive, because if you're thinking incentive is money related, then he loses that incentive. Not that he would, he's a professional, but you just think, why not have this conversation at the end of the season? So is it us leaking it? Is it the media leaking it? Is it them trying to put more pressure on us? I do not know, because it does seem like odd timing, I don't think. Sometimes you time these things like Saka's renewal and all these things around losses or potential losses and things like that. 2 hours ago, Daily FC said initial discussions are heading in a positive direction over a new contract for manager Mikel Arteta. All parties have agreed to focus on the running. We'll talk to the restart afterwards. His personal pay and financial backing are key to the deal. So, that is kind of essentially saying what I've said, which is, do it at the end of the year. But it's just interesting that those conversations are being had in front of us now. We've got... I just scrolled through just to see if we got anything interesting there, and straight away is, what are Arsenal players watching on the big screen? I'm sure that's going to be memed. It's them all looking at a big screen. They've turned away from the cameras. It's just so interesting to me that we do things like that sometimes on the days where the cameras are there. There's a bit of footage of Eza and Arteta kind of communicating. No, it doesn't look like it. I think they've also said that Lewis Skelly and Waneri, our futures, are in doubt at Arsenal as well, and that's kind of come out today. Again, that is something that I think that's more media kind of maybe trying to get a focus put on us to kind of put us off and set us on a different path. And I think you got to kind of just zero in and just not listen to it. I mean, Arteta talks at the end of the year that, we could have guessed that, because they should be done at the end of the year, depending on what he does. They're just kind of reiterating that, but there's no reason to be bringing up right before we play Bournemouth back in the Premier League after 23 days. Similar to Waneri and Lewis Skelly. Waneri's not even with us right now. He's over in Marseille. Lewis Skelly, and I think there's a future for both of them at Arsenal. And we said on the main feed this week that sometimes there's a difference between who's going to be the Saka and who's going to be the Willock. And I don't want to be disrespectful really towards Willock and like a Iwobi and Smith Rowe and these guys, but some will be that and some won't be, because if we wanted to sell Waneri on. The problem is to sell him abroad, the money isn't quite there, so we'd have to sell him interiorly. I don't think we want to deal with that. And I think there's such a future there for him. Same with Lewis Skelly is, if he's moving on, that the place is coming in at places like Dortmund and that, or they're going to be West Ham, or somewhere like that. And these are 50 plus million pound players. And again, that is what your youth system's for. It's either to create the new player that's going to change your game like Saka or Dalman, or it's to create revenue because these are completely free. And you don't play PFA. PSR. You don't play PSR on these profits. So it's huge. If you can create enough of these, you can cash in on it. So we'll see. But I think both of those questions will be answered at the end of the season. So the next thing we need to worry about is Bournemouth this weekend. That was the preview. We've also got Man City to look out for against Chelsea. Chelsea could be out Enzo Fernandez. We need the right Chelsea to turn up because they're the kind of team that you just don't know. We don't know if they're going to get beaten 4-0 at home and the crowd are going to boo and that's the end of that for Rafinha, or the team that turned up against Liverpool at home and the crowd are up, Esteval scoring, and Cole Palmer masterclass or whatever it is. And City have this in them as well because you look at, they drop points at Tottenham, they drop points at home to Forest, away at West Ham. They do have it in them if a team is at them or gets the rub of the green or whatever it is. So we just got to really do our job and just not worry about them really. But if we do our job, at least we can enjoy it because the game after that in the Premier League is the Man City game. And we'll be getting to that next week because as for now, this will be your preview. I might jump on at the end of the weekend. If not, it'll be Monday's episode here on the Patreon, ad-free, but on the main feed, iTunes and Spotify. And then on Wednesday, Joe and I will be back in the studio to do our usual Wednesday episode. I believe it is Wednesday night, so we'll preview that on the web on that episode because it'll just be, more voices, more people, more opinions. So we'll do that, and then I'll get to that preview of that big Man City game here on the Patreon at the end of next week. But we'll be back on Monday. Enjoy the weekend. Hopefully we get the 3 points, and Man City drop some points. Bye-bye.